This episode has been brought to you by Manscaped. The new Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra is every man's cheat code to look good, feel good, and turn the page on confidence this year. Go to manscaped.com, use the code GOLTS20 for 20% off plus free shipping today. This week on the Heart of the Gulch YouTube show, we start off Halloween week with the musician/songwriter Zoee. In today's Walk the Line episode, Zoee gives us a live performance of her hit single, 666. Let's check out the episode. Well, trick or treat, what's going on, everybody? It's the week of Halloween, and I am super excited to bring you my guest today, all the way from down under Tasmania. I gotta have that Tasmanian devil sound on there. But we got someone that is rocking it all over the U.S. and outside of the U.S. She's already had number ones outside of the United States. We got the one and only Zoee in the building.
Hi. Thank you for having me. It's such a pleasure to be on the show.
Well, I'm super excited. Like I said, thank you for coming on such an amazing week.
I know, right?
Well,
scary week.
You know, I like things to feel a little creepy, you know, in the vibes. You can see that everything changed from what you're used to.
No, it's great. I love the change. I'm actually very grateful.
Well, you know, so since we are recording this, and, you know, what I really want to get kind of established really quickly is how scary was it that when you were growing up, you didn't have any cell phones or any kind of technology when you were in Tasmania?
You know, it's actually funny that you mentioned that, because as a kid, it didn't bother me at all. You know, it was like we lived so remote, and I got to grow up exploring the coast and going fishing and looking in tide pools and discovering critters and making friends with animals. And, you know, I had other friends as well. That sounds really weird that I just only had animal friends. I didn't just have animal friends. I had real people as well, but I just kind of preferred animals. This is going terrible already. No, it was great. I loved it. And I had music. Music was my friend as well. And like my parents, they had a 20-foot long shipping container of records that they'd collected over the course of their entire relationship. So from 8-tracks to cassettes to vinyls, and so much music. And as a kid, I would just go in there and just pull out stuff and go, oh my gosh. Like, I remember one time I found Alan Parsons' project, and I was like, I come out, I'm like, Mom, have you heard that? Like, this is, you need to hear this. She's like, yes, honey, I've heard it before. I'm like, no, you don't understand. And she's like, honey, how do you think it got in there? I'm like, oh.
Well, there's so many things that it's almost amazing, because not only from your dialect, the way you speak, also comes down to your roots, being surrounded with music. When you don't have the internet and things like that kind of bugging you down, you have to listen to music to keep your head sane. So who are you listening to as, while you're growing up?
Oh my God. Well, like, where do I start? Because like that record collection I just told you about, it was everything. So it was from Merle Haggard through to AC/DC, Eminem, to Loretta Lynn. The array of music was huge. So, and I realized early on as well that genre doesn't really define a good song.
Absolutely not.
A good song is a good song regardless. So my listening ear is absolutely everything. But yeah, I mean, classics, Springsteen to Akadaka, to Neil Diamond, Neil Young, like so many incredible, James Taylor, like just Rod Stewart. I'm a huge Rod Stewart fan. There's just so much. And I feel like all of it helped kind of my musical DNA. It helped me figure out who I am as an artist, and also being able to pull from that history. And then also having now, like, living in Nashville and being around so many incredible artists as well, and songwriters and all of that. I feel like that's it's just molded me into this musical creature that I...
Well, it's a little spooky, when you move from that area, the world, to the United States. But, I'm going to stick a little bit more on Australia a little bit, because I'm curious, and I'm sure the folks that are watching this from all over the country are wondering this too. How different is it compared to the U.S.?
You'd have a lot less Vegemite. I will say it's a lot tougher to find that kind of food here, actually, Vegemite being one of them, and I'm always looking for that. But you know what? I think the population density is so much bigger here than it is in Australia. And just getting used to being around that many people all the time is because like Australia has 26 million people, and Australia is pretty much, you take Australia and put it on top of the American map, they're pretty much for much size wise. So I mean, landmass speaking, geographically speaking, it's pretty similar. Whereas, so you got 26 million in Australia, whereas in the States you've got, I think 360 something now,
something crazy,
million,
yeah,
which is insane. So like just that in itself is pretty incredible. Learning to drive on the wrong side of the road has been also. I've had a few hairy little moments where I'm like, am I in the? Oh nope, wrong one. Literally, got to get in the right lane, which is the wrong lane in my brain. But no, it's been a challenge in some aspects, and other aspects like musically has been so easy because I grew up listening to so much of the music here, and culturally in that sense it's just been like, it's just so simple. Yeah, I mean, I have started picking up some words too, because I've been living here now for 2.5 years, and so I have noticed that my accent is starting to pick up some southern kind of terms.
Yeah,
like I say y'all now, which apparently I'm saying wrong.
There's nothing wrong with saying y'all.
Well, it's like y'all, right? But
yeah.
I say y'all, which is kind of apparently wrong, but I love it. It's like it's so easy. The southern accent is so simple to. It's very. I feel like Australia and the South are very similar in that sense. We're very laid back, very easygoing. We're very friendly. Food's great. So a lot of similar things like that.
You know, so how much of Australia, and talking about keeping the spooky theme, how much of it is actually uninhabitable? Because I know that Australia is a humongous continent. And it's definitely, there's definitely areas where, you know, folks are not, you know, inhabitant. And there's also some of the spookiest creatures there are in Australia, believe it or not.
And that's just the locals. Oh, it's a terrible joke. So sorry. No, it is, there's a lot in the middle that's pretty uninhabitable. There's a place actually in the center called Alice Springs and Birdsville, and those two places, like the right dead center of Australia. And I think the population is tiny. It's like under 100 people, I think, last time I looked. But it's so hot. Like there's a place in Australia as well called Cooperapedy, and it's a mining town, but they actually built everything underground. So there's hotels underground, and there's like pubs and places and stores and stuff all underground, which is pretty crazy, but they do it because of the heat, and it's cooler to live, and it's a mining town, so you know they're mining for opals and all sorts of stuff out there, and it's gorgeous, you know, but it's just so hot. So a lot of it is very you know, and I feel like the population situation here is like why places like Nevada are a similar kind of place where it's extremely hot and desert works, and a lot more people live there, because I feel like that population just amasses to the ability for more infrastructure and all that kind of stuff. Whereas there, we haven't got the population, so the infrastructure demand isn't there. So a lot of people just decide to stick to the coasts. And of course, the coasts are beautiful, and there's beautiful beaches. And again, not a lot of people, so you can be out on a you know, turquoise, beautiful blue water, white sand beach, and no one's around. And that happens more often than not, and it's stunning and beautiful.
Well, you know, before you moved to Nashville, you were over there where was it in the UK?
I started in London and realized how expensive and how crazy it is to live in London. So I was there for about 6 months, I suppose, and ended up moving up further north towards Scotland. And one thing to another, kind of lived in Glasgow, Edinburgh, Manchester, London, Dublin,
How
Belfast.
different are all those different areas?
Incredibly vastly different, actually, because I don't know exactly why, but it's still very clan orientated in the UK, which I think is amazing because it's such a small space. But like, even if you go 10 miles down the road, the accent's completely different.
Really?
And it's like, yeah, no, it's really, there is so many accent changes and so many different little cultural differences, you know, like even in Liverpool, there's the Scouse people, and there's like a radius of like, I think, like 1.5 miles radius, like, and that's just that one group of, and so it's very, and again, like in Australia, there's 3 different accents. That's it. There's like the bogan, there's the middle, which is mine, and then there's the cultivated, which is more or less like the, oh yes, it's almost British.
More proper.
It's almost, yeah, it's very proper. The bogan is crikey, like, you know, the Steve Irwin kind of guy. My dad is exactly that to a T. So
how annoying does that get? When people bring up Steve Irwin, I mean, it's not like, you really, so you never get tired of hearing that. It's like when people talk about Texas, they usually think of like, George Strait, and that's all they talk about is George Strait.
No, it's for me. I mean, he was such a gem of a soul. He was like he was a hero for so many people, and for me especially, as I said, I'm a big animal person, so it was always such a nice thing to see someone kind of just genuinely heart and soul out for all the good reasons, helping animals, not doing terrible things, doing genuinely honest, lovely things, and teaching the world how to be that way. And I always thought that was such a beautiful thing. And I suppose music in many senses kind of stems back to that for me, because that's what I want music to do. I want it to bring people together and make them feel something. And that's what he did with animals. And it was a beautiful thing. I loved it.
Well, speaking of that, and what's been the scariest place that you've had to play so far? Is it in Australia? Is it in the UK? Or is it here in the United States?
Oh man, you know what? I have a really terrible story that I don't really talk. I don't know if I've actually done an interview on this story or not, but I'll tell it because it was pretty scary. And since we're celebrating all good things scary at the moment, I got to come to Nashville for the first time to perform, and it was 2019. CMA Fest were like, we want you to come over and play. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm in the middle of a UK tour already. So I'm like trying to carve out time in the midst of this tour to come, because they called me like just weeks before the show. So
as Nashville does.
Well, yeah, I mean, but I'm like, okay, of course we'll make it work.
Yeah, that's scary within itself.
That was a very scary part, yeah. But it got scarier. So somehow managed to carve out the time to come here, managed to carve out 3 weeks and push some dates further forward and move stuff around. And I managed to also get a night to play at the Bluebird, which for anyone who knows, the Bluebird is just the most iconic music venue and a songwriter venue ever. And to get to play there is such a privilege. And it had been a dream of mine for a long time. Of course, the TV show made it extremely famous as well, Nashville. And so I got in to play a night. And so I arrive in Nashville and I'm freaking out. You can imagine this is the first time getting to really play Nashville and really like be here.
The Bluebird as your first time to play
and
Nashville.
The CMA Fest, and I'm like, this is crazy, pinch me. And so I get here. I think the gig on the Bluebird was the first gig I had before the CMA thing, and it was 2 or 3 nights in of me having landed in Nashville, and nobody had told me about the pollen situation in Nashville.
Oh,
I lose my voice.
No,
completely lose my voice. Like I'm just dying trying to sing. Every time I try and sing, I cannot hold a note. I'm just like, and I'm so scared at this point.
Stupid allergies.
Well, I had no idea, and I didn't realize even at the time that was what was causing it. I'm like, did I pick something up on the plane, at the airport? Have I got a cold? I'm like taking every flu kind of medication I can get my hands on. I'm sucking lozenges, like I'm trying lemon tea, like everything. Nothing is working, and I'm freaking out, and it's like 2 days in and I still can't sing. And I'm like, oh my God, and it's like my whole life depends on this show, right? Like this is, I've been waiting for this moment. And I finally, I realize what it is. Someone tells me, oh my gosh, you've been hit with the pollen. I'm like, what now? Tell me about this. Tell me quickly. And so I end up going and getting a steroid shot to go and get my voice to come back. Again, who knows this stuff? But you discover it when you come to Nashville. That's just what you do. Night of the show, I'm out the back and I'm warming up, and I've got my I use a straw sometimes to warm up and all sorts of stuff, and I'm out there, going through the scales and things, and they're like, and now it's Zoee to the Bluebird Cafe, you're welcome her. I'm like nervous, so intimate, small room, as well, so you can see the whites of everybody's eyes on top of it, as if there wasn't enough pressure I was putting on myself. And I get up there. And I'm like, the verses are really low, so I'm singing okay, and I'm confident, and I'm like, this is amazing. Oh my God, I'm taking it all in. I'm trying to like really, oh my goodness, I'm here, And then I go for the chorus, and the chorus was just chaos. I lost it. I couldn't control the notes. I was like I sound like a duck being strangled.
No.
It was so bad. It was exactly.
Sound like a Tasmanian devil.
It sounded like a Tasmanian devil, not in a good way. It was really, and I was so mortified. Like I got off the stage and I finished the song because that's what you do. You don't stop. You finish the song. So I finished the song. I got off. And the host actually came up to me afterwards, and it meant so much to me because I was so embarrassed and I was so like shamed in myself because I couldn't do what I wanted to do and have that moment. And he was like, he jumps on the mic and he's like, can we just have another round of applause for Zoe for just actually continuing to perform, knowing that she's clearly suffering with allergies from Nashville, which we've all been, through before. And it was like, he just really softened the blow, and just everyone was like coming up to me at the end, like, you were so brave, like that was so amazing. And like, I couldn't have probably asked for a more welcoming experience, as crazy as it turned out to be at the Bluebird, than that. And I've fortunately been able to play there a lot more since then. I play pretty regularly now, and everyone's so sweet still, but I just remember that being the core memory of one of my scariest moments, because I had such high stakes to play there, and it was such a, You know what? Speaking of scary situations, you know what is also a scary situation during this week? If these lights don't turn on. And the way that we turn on these lights is through our sponsor. So real quick, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back with Zoe right after this. I'm curious to know, what's the fascination with American music, and specifically right now, country music in the UK? And why is there such a driving force over there right now? It's just, country music is just exploding. Kind of music seems to have always done that full circle effect. I think we're back at another full circle effect where it is at the peak. When you've got people like Beyonce and Post Malone leaving pop music to come into country, I think that's incredible, and it just says a lot about where we're at in the business right now, and also in the creative space too. But yeah, I was very grateful to get to be like a part of that beginning wave, and all my friends are still there that are, performing and stuff, and we're always keeping in touch and things, and like, when are you coming back? Like, soon, I hope. But yeah, it was awesome. How spooky is it to perform, while people are just walking right on the street? That one's really spooky. That one's really scary. And I busked for years, because like when I moved to the UK, I couldn't come here. I couldn't get a visa to come here. And you said bus, right? B-U-S? Busk. Yeah. Busk. What does that mean? So like performing on the street. They call it busk? Busking, yeah. I didn't know that. So that's kind of that was like how I made my living for years to get started, because I couldn't get in to play very many clubs or venues. No one knew who I was. And so when I first moved there, it was like, well, okay. I lived in my car for a while, and I busked. And that was kind of how I survived. What song would give you the most tips? Oh, it depends. That's a good one. I feel like Ed Sheeran, anything Ed Sheeran, the Brits just love Ed Sheeran, of course. I love Ed Sheeran. If there was anything Ed Sheeran, obviously things like Country Roads was always a smash for everybody, because everyone knows Country Roads. I'd even sing things like Sure, Turn Back Time. That was one of my favorites. That always got a good reaction too. Well, that's actually what led. So you performing on the streets actually led to your latest single that we're filming, this 666. Well, yeah. So fun story about that song. Yeah. So I'm busking on the streets. It's really interesting when you're busking, because people are busy. They're not there to see you. They're not there for a concert. They're there because they got to go from here to here, and you're just in the middle of that. Just in the middle of their way. That's kind of it. You're kind of like, I'm sorry. I have been stomped on and all sorts of. It's been a crazy adventure. Anyway, so you're another story. So you're kind of like, you're really working hard to get anyone to stop and pay attention to you or listen to a song. If you can get them to stop for a whole song, you're doing great. If you can get them to stop for 10, 15 minutes, you're like a legend. And I would busk for hours and hours and hours, and like fingers would bleed and all sorts of stuff in the middle of the winter, middle of summer, like it's crazy. But so there's one particular time, it was the middle of summer in Glasgow, out on Buchanan Street, and there was this one guy who stopped and watched my whole set, and he like grabbed a coffee, and he's standing there, and he's really cute, and he's tall, and I'm like, oh wow, who are you? Kind of like, as you do, the back of your brain's just going off, because you've been performing for a long time at this point, right? So you know what you're performing, so you're not having to think. You can just like, you kind of like wander off. You're like, oh wow, what is that? Did I leave the kettle on? No, I didn't. That's pretty amazing. A lot of people don't know how much of a skill that is, that you're able to perform, sing, but still have your own internal thoughts. So while you're looking at a good-looking guy, you're having internal thoughts. Very internal thoughts about it. But then also singing to the crowd. Right. So when you're watching him, you were just in awe from his look? Yeah, basically he looked like he was a movie star or something, and I was in awe of the fact that he'd stayed so long to watch, and I'm thinking, this is crazy. So performing away, and in my head I'm like, he's about 6 foot. gosh, he's got to be at least 6 foot. And then I'm like, he looks pretty fit. I'm like, he's probably got a six-pack under that shirt. I'm trying not to think about it, and I am. And it's just, as you do. And I'm like, this is, And then if he has a six-figure income, like, whoa, like 666. And so I just took that title, 6 foot, six-pack, six-figure, and I put it into my notes because I journal all the time. And I feel like as a songwriter, you have to be documenting everything all the time. And so I put it in my notes and left it, didn't think about it. Maybe thought about it a little bit after that and kind of met him and it was lovely. But didn't think about it, left it there for a couple of years until I came to Nashville. And actually just this year, I was in my co-writing session with my co-writers. They're like, so what do you want to write today, Zoe? Like, what's going on? I'm like, well, this is going to sound crazy, but I have an idea from like 3-4 years ago that I haven't touched. They're like, tell us. I'm like, well, he's a 6 foot, six-pack, six-figure rebel. They're like, we are writing that song. That is happening. And so we wrote it. I think it was probably within about an hour. We put it all down and did vocals, did the harmonies. There's tons of harmony stacks on there, so that took a while. But yeah, it was just like, you just never know where a song's going to come from. And as a songwriter, you just have to keep your antenna open because you can get inspiration from like everywhere.
Well, you know, it's interesting because when we think about just internal thoughts, and it's, you know, Halloween weekend, so there's a lot of internal thoughts that you may be thinking while you're sleeping in the bed and you're worried about things. But, you know,
that little thing touching your foot.
Exactly, right? Or I'm always scared about keeping my feet
under, like in the blanket.
Not in the blanket. If my feet are outside of the blanket, the scary movies in me, I always think someone's gonna grab me
Same. I could, as long as it's a sheet, I don't even care if it's thick. It can be just a sheet, anything.
Wait, real quick, let's keep on this theme before we go back to 666. So, which obviously makes good sense in this environment. But so real quick, when it comes to spooky thoughts, what are some things that you get freaked out the most? Because mine's shadows. I hate. I like my place to be completely dark when I'm going to bed because you can't be scared of a shadow if it's all dark. That's just me.
That's a good one. No, I like that. I always related to Indiana Jones. I always loved Indiana Jones. Always related to his fear of snakes. I know I'm from Australia and I know it's probably illegal for me to say that, but I don't do snakes. I think I've just had such a bad experience with them. My dad and I used to like relocate because we'd have lots that come into the yard and stuff and through the summer and things. And so we'd relocate them. There was a couple of incidents where it was a little bit freaky. We'd put them in a bucket, put a lid on.
They have some of the most dangerous snakes in, you know, Australia. And then not only.
They were the ones we had.
And then Tasmania is even smaller, right? So but also I'm curious, Tasmania, do they have Tasmanian devils there?
Yeah, they do. But they don't spin like the cartoons, unfortunately.
They don't make that.
No, they don't. They make it like a scream,
It's a horrific scream, really. And
You've heard it. If anyone who's watching hasn't, you should definitely check it out because it's kind of indescribable, actually.
Do you know what a chupacabra is?
Yeah.
You know what a chupacabra is? So,
I know because of Scooby-Doo.
Oh, hey, well, you know what? So for some reason, when I was researching Tasmania and Tasmanian devils, it kind of reminded me of the urban legend of chupacabras.
Yeah.
And which is a Halloween, you know, tale and a mythical tale of what an item was, a thing, a creature that came in the backyard of farms and tear up all the the livestock. So I'm curious to know if Tasmanian devils, are there any kind of scary things that they do, or
they will go after dogs and they will attack dogs. They'll like, get your ankle and stuff like that. And here's the thing with them is they have what's called a lockjaw. So if they bite you, it won't come undone, and they have a really wide like angle that they can open their jaw up at, and it's pretty, again, check it out if you've never seen it, because it's not like a normal, it opens kind of almost double and then it locks. So yeah, if your dog gets out and gets bitten by one or something, it's going to just stay on there, it's not coming off. But yeah, I mean, they're actually kind of small, but they're all meat eaters and they love to tear stuff up.
Well, you know, going back to the story of your song, the name 666, you've kind of already said how much controversy it's made by itself. Now, do you take back anything like that, or do you like that kind of jumps off the page of a title, or is it ever kind of get with you a little bit, mess with you just a little bit?
You mean like the reaction from people, or just actually writing songs that are kind of on the edge?
It is a little bit on the edge, the song, because you play with the idea of, you know, a fallen angel and things like that, which I'm a Catholic, but I love, that's actually my favorite kind of scary movie, is anything that has to do with the devil.
Love that.
But I'm curious to know, by making your name, your brand with the brand 666, does it ever get to you a little bit?
I think when it comes to songwriting, it is such a creative space. You get to dive into places you probably normally wouldn't. And I think that's the wonderful part of having creative freedom being an artist. And I love being able to come up with song ideas and bring them to my co-writers and explore where that will go to. And in that scenario with that song, I mean, it wasn't anything more than he is trouble. Like, he is good looking, hot trouble. And that's kind of what it was. Like, he's the devil in disguise, because he's got, you know, he's bad news, but you kind of also want to sort of know more. And that was the whole intention behind that song. So if it was something else out of that context, then I could understand it. But it was so I just would say misunderstood, in the sense that people just judged it by the title, which is fair. But you know, when you realize what it's about, it's like, oh, that's cool. One
of the first songs I ever heard you sing was Jackie.
Oh, yes. So, yeah, I mean, that's completely opposite again from 666, in the sense that it is all about your best. It's a love letter to your best friend. And I wrote that after I got my heart broken pretty severely and was crying on the kitchen floor, and my best friend was like, you've got this. It's going to be okay. Tomorrow is a new day. It's going to be all right, kind of thing. And she was just there. And I think that best friends are kind of a little bit just kind of brushed under the rug a little bit, just kind of like you expect them to always be there. And, you know, vice versa. If you're the best friend, you're always showing up, and you're always... And I wanted to write something that was like a love letter to your best friend. Like, hey, I know what you do. I appreciate what you do. And I love you so much for just always being there for me and helping me up and, you know, sitting with me and eating a box of, you know, ice cream together or whatever.
So Jackie isn't the name of immediately your best friend. It's just a name that you came up with?
It is just a name, but she actually does exist, yeah. But you know what? I've had so many people come up to me afterwards, after shows, like anywhere I play it or anything, and we're like, she's my Jackie. Like, we now call each other Jackie. And I'm so touched by that, because that is just such a, like, if that's the one thing I want to be able to do as an artist, is to bring people together. Because I've had that experience with music before in the past, where you go to a concert and you're standing with thousands of strangers next to you, absolute strangers. But in that moment, when the song starts and the front of house is pushing that music to you, everyone's united and everyone's crying or everyone's laughing or they're jumping and raving. And it's like, that is the power of music, and just bringing people together and letting people forget about their problems for an hour or 2 hours or however long your show is, or for however long your song is, and just being that escape for people. That's the biggest thing for me to do for people.
Curious to know, like, where is your main goal with this? Are you looking to be to stay independent as an artist, or would you like to have that opportunity of having a bigger label come in, help you do all this promotion?
That's such a we're in such an interesting time in the business right now. I feel like where artists are doing, as we just mentioned, every part of the job. They're the label, they're the marketing, they're the songwriters, the producers. Like, they're wearing so many hats, but also it gives you the freedom to do whatever you want. You know, you're not limited by a label to put out a song whenever you feel like it. You can write a song today and put it out tomorrow. It's, I think, more or less about finding the team of people that believe in you, not as much as you believe in you, because you have to believe the most, because that's your job.
Yep.
But the ones that you bring in to be a part of your team, they need to see your vision and not want to alter that or change that, or go, well, here, maybe you could be the next Britney Spears if we dress you this way, or, you know what I mean? And you really need to take it slow with finding those people that have got that right kind of vision that you have, and want to expand on that and want to see that come to life for you. And it's just, it takes time to get to know people. It takes time for them to get to know you. So at this point, you know, I'm at that point where I'm just I'm getting to know everybody and they're getting to know me.
Whenever you think about Halloween time, what is your favorite season? Do you like Halloween?
I do.
Why do you like Halloween?
The pumpkin spice stuff.
The pumpkin spice?
I like pumpkin spice stuff. I just think I'm calling it fall now, by the way. It's autumn where I'm from. I think it's just a very beautiful time of year. And the spooky, I mean, I'm not a super, super scary, but like I just watched The Shining for the first time.
What do you think of that?
I was literally on the edge of my seat for the entire movie. And then when they finally got away, I was like, thank everybody for this, because I was dead sure they were going to die.
What's the creepiest part of that movie that got you kind of freaked out? Because The Shining is probably one of the most like slow building scary movies ever.
I'm just sitting there just the whole time like I can't breathe, I can't move.
Yeah, it gets you
my
too.
Popcorn was everywhere. It wasn't in my bowl anymore. I think the door scene is pretty terrifying. Yeah. Where she locks him in the freezer, also very terrifying. And he's like that camera angle where they went up and they shot him like underneath, and he's like, "Let me out." And I'm like, "Hell no, don't let him out." And then the maze where he's chasing the little kid, outsmarts him. I'm like, "Thank you, little kid, for being so smart, because you saved everybody." But also creepy. Mazes are already creepy, but creepy.
So one thing that I learned, so I'm a big horror movie buff.
Are you? Okay.
So obviously, if you don't get the gist, right? But I'm a huge horror movie buff. So when we talk about the movies like The Shining, it's the way that they film and the cinematography behind it. So when that little kid is on his bike and he's going through everything, or even the way he says "red rum." Red Rob.
Oh, that's really scary.
Red Rob. Oh my gosh.
Oh, that's so close.
I know.
Like even you're right though. When he was riding the bike, the trike, I should say, and he was hitting the floorboards, and then it would hit the carpet.
It's beautifully shot though.
It's so beautiful, but the sound as well, like shh.
Yeah,
and I'm like, 100%. Oh my gosh.
100%. See, I'm happy we talked a little bit of some scary movies there. But speaking of being a little scared, right? Yeah. So we were talking about the Bluebird earlier, about you playing on the Bluebird, and obviously you played in multiple other listening rooms and things like that.
Yeah.
But I saw recently that you were in the same stage as Post Malone.
I got to play Bridgestone for the first time ever as well. Which
oh my gosh, let's talk about Bridgestone, because
crazy.
That story about how you had a band, they left, and then you had to get another band in under like 2 hours or something.
It was middle of the night. I get a text, and I'm like, it was late at night, I should say, and I get a text from my drummer, who is actually Megan Moroney's drummer, and I was using their band. That was who was playing with me, and we were all rehearsed and ready to go for the show, and I get a message that night before the show. We have on contract, we have to go and play another show. I'm so sorry, we're gonna have to figure something else out. My heart has just gone through the floor. Like I'm getting to play Bridgestone for the first time ever. This is crazy, and now I have no band. So I'm going through all the scenarios. I'm like, can I do it acoustically? Who do I know? Like, who can I get?
Yeah, because this is also Bridgestone during a hockey game. So you have you have a lot of fans that are really amped up. Super. So a acoustic version of your music, which is beautiful, but
not going to have the vibe.
It's not going to have the vibe of a hockey game.
No, I mean, those horns that are going off. I mean, if that doesn't startle you, then nothing will. But somehow Nashville being Nashville, I got another band together by the next morning, rehearsed virtually because we wasn't able to get together because it was in the middle of the night, and was ready to go, and we played the show the next day, which was insane. And we rehearsed on sound check. We went through the songs like really quickly. We're like, do you know this bit? Do you know that bit? Do you know where the gap is here?
What was that like? So when you're performing, was that, first of all, is that the biggest crowd you ever performed to?
No, I've played bigger crowds over in the UK. I've played some big festivals over there. Transmit Festival was one of them. I think I forget how many numbers were there, but it's the biggest venue or place I've played in the States, and it was fantastic. I loved every bit of it. Like, I don't know what it is about a small crowd I love as well, but I think probably the getting to see the intimate white parts of people's eyes as you're singing your feelings to them, and they're just sitting there judging you and staring at you or feeling the same way. I I think is probably more scary than it is playing to a full stadium full of people that are just thumping and having the best time.
When you're performing at something like that, are you performing? So you kind of talked about it right now. When it's a smaller, intimate setting, you can actually get the vibe from the people you're looking at. You can directly look at someone and sing to them.
And you see the reaction straight away, like what it's making them feel.
Now
and that's
change
very
that
cool.
to thousands of people.
Right.
And where I would think it's almost like you have to pretend like you're not singing to thousands of people. It's like you singing in your bedroom, just looking at a mirror.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do that whenever I'm playing big shows as well. I'll zone in on a couple of people that are close enough to really like see. And I feel like I've seen that happen with a lot of times when I've been in the audience as well. Like someone will be on stage and then they'll just be staring at you. And I feel like that happens with a lot of people. I feel though that is because we want to make that connection. And I do it now that I'm not in the audience as much and I'm on the stage. I feel myself doing it because I'm just looking for that connection again, to have that, like, how is this making you feel?
Do you
feel
make
like
people feel a little like at ease, unease? You know, have you ever seen a guy blush when you sing directly to them?
No, I haven't.
What does a blushing look like when you're singing to them?
Fantastic. For me, I love making them feel like that. It's fantastic. If I am performing though, I'm always trying to make the song do the work and just like let them genuinely feel it. But if I happen to look up and catch a guy like smiling at me or something, and I just smile back, I've seen him blush, like, you know, and it's really sweet. And you know, I think always most of the people that I've been really lucky to play for have always been very good intended people and are like at the end, you know, like really, really grateful and stuff. So yeah, it's nothing too creepy or weird in that sense, but I have definitely seen a few guys blush.
Well, I love it. Okay, well, you know, speaking of which, because we got some more stuff to talk about, we got a section on the show called Crowd Noise. If you'd like to hear some folks ask you some questions.
Absolutely.
All right, you ready to do it?
Yeah.
Let's do it right now.
Your biggest musical influence?
Oh, my biggest musical influence. That's a good question because I have had such a beautiful background in music. I gotta say, my absolute all-time icon ever is Rod Stewart. I think he was just born to be a rock star though. Like the hair, the voice, the whole thing. I mean, it was the style. And he can literally sing any song and just turn it into a smash. And I just always admired him and his voice and the way that he's able to perform on stage and that whole thing. And I, as a little kid, used to go and steal mum and dad's cassette tapes of him, and he was my nurse, like my lullaby music as a little girl. I'd put it in my cassette player and I'd fall asleep to it. Yeah, it was.
When you're talking about Rob Stewart, I do see when you are performing, sometimes when you do not have, you know, a guitar in hand, you are really up there and kind of getting into the crowd and just really having a lot of energy with you. So is that stuff that you've taken from your musical influences of just don't stay right on the...
Right, you gotta have fun. You gotta have fun. If you're not having fun, no one's having fun. That's the whole reason for performing is to have a good time. And I love it up there. Like it's a workout. It's fun. You're getting to tell your stories and share your stories with a whole bunch of people who care about you, which is crazy. So if you can't be having a good time with that, then you're in the wrong job. Okay. I love it.
All right, let's go on to the next question here.
Most rewarding song you've been a part of?
Oh, most rewarding song I've been a part of. That's a good one. I feel like actually Jackie is probably, because I've just had so many people come up to me and thank me for that song and be like, this is us, you know, you brought us together, or we had a fight and your song, you know, pulled us back together and stuff. And I've just had so much beautiful reaction from that song. And yeah, even out live, it's pretty powerful. So yeah, I feel like Jackie's probably the song there.
You know, and
there's been a lot.
You were talking about how right now you're really in the mode of writing. You're in the mode of writing, producing new music. Like I said, by the time we release this, obviously you guys will know that it's Halloween this week, but you know, we're filming this ahead of time, obviously, but it's very interesting to me that you are constantly releasing music. Right now it's 666, but you know, do you already have the titles, or are you going to give us any insight on titles?
I will say,
you don't have to.
There is like lots of little voices that, you know, kind of are always going off, and sometimes I just wonder if I should be having what he's having, but I'm not going to tell you titles.
Okay. Well, then I'm curious to know when
really
you're,
sad.
how hard is it to pick your next single?
Really tough. They're like choosing your favorite child. It's really tough because I love all of the stuff that I'm making, and I'm writing every week constantly. So there's always new stuff being made, but it's very tough. It's like trying to pick a favorite kid. You can't, because everyone's got a different meaning or a different like a style. Or I've got one song at the moment that I'm absolutely obsessed with, and it's slow and it's intimate and broken down and it's very mental health based. And then I have another one which is all about growing up and getting older, and it's like full on and fun and it's okay. And it's just totally different vibes. So it depends on the day. It depends on my mood. That's why I think it's every single release day is such a weird, anxious time for me, because as soon as you put out a song, it's like it's gone. It's no longer yours anymore.
Really? I think it's the opposite way. When people put out music, it seems like they are consistently focusing on getting more views to that music or that. And first of all, what's the best way that people can support your music? Is it pre-saves on Spotify? What are the ways that people can help?
Find me on TikTok and Instagram and Spotify. That'd be the top ones. And I'm just Zoee, Zoee across everything. And I actually started doing the whole TikTok thing now. I officially am a TikToker. Not a very cool one, but a TikToker nonetheless. So I'm Zoee Talk because I couldn't get Zoee Music. Someone took Zoee Music. Can you believe that?
Well, I mean, hey, there's a lot of people in this world.
Yeah,
and
that's
the
true.
scary thing about it is that everyone has their own intentions. So maybe sometimes people are evil and they like to save popular names to one day have to sell to them.
That's true. I've seen that happen before. That happened with my domain name.
Really?
I tried to buy zoemusic.com, and I eventually got it, but it was really tough. Like they were not letting it up easy. So yeah, it happens.
So, now that we're kind of at the point of the show where I like to ask my two final questions, and one of the questions can be kind of scary when you really think about it. It's imposter syndrome. And it's when you have that moment where you're just doubting everything you've been doing. And I can only imagine coming from Australia, moving to the UK, then moving to the United States in Nashville, where there's a lot of musicians.
Yeah.
How do you not let that get to your head, get to your mental, and what are some mechanisms that can help the people that are going through those scary thoughts?
That's a really great question, and also leads into the song I was just talking about earlier that I've written, which is all about that. It's all about that voice in your head that's just never letting up. It's just constantly going, hey, you're not pretty enough, or hey, you don't sing well enough, or your songs suck, or you're just not a nice person, like all the time. And I suffer with that a lot. It's a tough one to silence it out, but I have to remember that I am not my thoughts. My thoughts are my thoughts. I am me, and they are two separate things. So if I tell myself that I am my thoughts and that's all true, and I'll I'm not my thoughts. My thoughts are a separate thing. They have their own space. I can look at them, observe them, and control them, but they're not me. I am still me at the same time. So that always seems to help me get through. If I'm having those thoughts, I'm like, okay, so she thinks I'm fat. Well, that's fine. She can just sit there and think that. I'm not, but it's fine. She can think that, or whatever it might be. Because I know deep down I'm a good person. I know deep down I work hard, or I work out, or I do this, or I give it my best. And that's always, I think, I am very much a perfectionist as well. So that's another part of me that I also have to deal with, because that little voice and then the perfectionism, it kind of collides a lot. And they're like, you could have done better. You could have done that so much better. Like, and you're just constantly like, stop. But I think it's something we do definitely need to talk about a lot more, because I think a lot of my girlfriends suffer with the same thing too. Is he looking at me like that, or did I just, like all of that kind of stuff. But I really do believe that if you just constantly remind yourself you are not your thoughts. Your thoughts are a separate entity. They're there. Don't forget they're there, but don't believe everything they say. They're not always in your corner. And the other thing, I will say one more thing that really has helped me is, would you tell your best friend, hey, you're so fat. Oh my God, you're just not doing your best. You could be doing so much better. You wouldn't say that to your best friend. So why would you say it to yourself? That's the other thing. And that really helps. So
I love that.
Yeah.
That's a really nice way to put it. I think there's so many people in here with malintentions, bad intentions. And, this is the week of Halloween anyway. So, when you're out there and you're trick-or-treating or passing out candy, it's always right to do things responsibly. Do not drink and drive. Do not do anything that's gonna cause harm to others. I know it's a spooky time of the year. We're watching all the scary movies, so in our mind are all these creepy things going on. But it's more importantly for you guys out there to be safe. So this week, while you're going out trick or treating, be safe
And pick up your trash.
and for real, 100%. Now, speaking of in the future. My last question on the show before we go on to your Walk the Line segment, which I'm very excited that if you're going to be performing something here. 2024, we're filming this at the last quarter of 2024.
Where's it gone?
Yeah, it's gone quick.
Wow.
Now, what are you looking forward to the rest of 2024 and the top of 2025?
So much stuff I can't even talk about. But also, I mean, the stuff that I can talk about is constantly making new music, lots of new music on the front, always releasing new stuff. So if you aren't already, definitely go and follow me on socials because there is tons of new stuff coming. And I've really just kind of zoned in on my writing team and my producer team here. And now that I'm in Nashville and I've been here for a minute, it takes a second to figure out like who your crew is and what your vibe is and make that work. And so I feel like I've very just recently zoned in on that. So I've got a whole batch of new music that's unlike anything I've put out before, beginning with 666 from that batch. So I'm very excited to start unfolding that whole new era now that we're here.
I love that. Now, real quick before I let you go here, what's your favorite Halloween candy?
Oh, those Twizzlers?
The Twizzlers, yeah.
Twizzlers. I love Twizzlers.
Ah.
Right. They like stay in your teeth for ages, and I'm just like, it's so unattractive. But
I'm a sour gummy guy.
I just had my first Sour Patch Kids ever the other day, and they're like they're experience. That's an experience.
It's an experience. They get sour and then they get sweet.
They're really like, it's
well, speaking of this sour and sweet, this is going to be sweet for you to do your Walk the Line segment, but the way we set it off right here is you look straight into that camera right there, you say your name and you say, this is how I walk the line, just like that Johnny Cash song. Okay, so right after the applause here, look right there, say your name and say, this is how I walk the line.
Hi, my name is Zoe, and this is how I walk the line. He's a 6 foot, 6 pack, 6-figure rebel with that slick back, James Dean face of a god. Got me praying on my knees, gives me reason to believe it's like he's falling straight from heaven, and he's burning like the devil. He's working 9 to 5, he's working overtime on me. We go from 6 to 9, he's got me stripped down to a T. That man is my obsession, and I'm guilty of confession. Oh, he's a 6 foot, 6 pack, 6-figure rebel with that slick back, James Dean face of a god. Got me praying on my knees, gives me reason to believe it's like he's falling straight from heaven, and he's burning like the devil. Sweet as forbidden fruit, but then he's salty to the taste. He's like the weatherman, he always knows just when it's gonna rain. He's a midnight daydream, keeping me wide awake. Take me higher, got me